But today I really wanted to share a little bit of my story, my journey with Stephanie, how I became a functional medicine practitioner, and why I love doing what I love to do today, especially alongside such a skilled holistic nutritionist and health coach. So this is a picture of me at 7 years old. We had a little career day at my school, and I went straight for the nurse's hat. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help sick and dying people. And fast forward, 13 years later, on my first day of my clinicals as a nursing student, I was 20 years old, and my assignment was to sit at the bedside of a dying woman. She had a daughter who was very far away, and the woman was essentially dying alone. So I was terrified to walk into her room and sit at her bedside and hold her hand. But I put my big girl pants on and I did that. And it so happened that her daughter's name was also Elizabeth. So when I pulled my chair up next to her and took her hand and told her what my name was, she kind of woke up for a moment. She had previously been almost unconscious, really raspy breath, and just not alert at all. But when I told her my name, she kind of opened her eyes and became alive again for a few moments. And it wasn't long after that that she went ahead and passed away with her hand in mine. And I knew in that moment that it was no accident that I had the same name as her daughter, because it was the piece that she needed to pass on to believe that her daughter was actually at her bedside. And at that time, I just decided this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. So I worked in ICU for a while and then really became interested in anesthesia. So I became an advanced practice nurse and became a nurse anesthetist. If you're not familiar with what nurse anesthetists do, we're the best kept secret out there. We give 70% of the anesthetics in the US every year. Typically, an anesthesiologist may introduce themselves to you at the bedside because they're responsible for the billing, but at the end of the day, for the most part, you've got a CRNA at your bedside actually administering the anesthesia. And I loved everything about that job. You can see my little cart here where I've got all my drugs, and these are all drug labels up top. I loved mixing drugs, drawing up drugs, administering drugs, intubating people, keeping them asleep, waking them up. I was a proceduralist at heart. I've got a huge catheter here in my hand with a really long needle at the end of it that I was inserting into someone's artery. I was one of the best in the department at this procedure, and that's why they took that picture of me. I loved epidurals and spinals, and I was thriving in that job for a period of time. But it required me to do 24-hour long shifts. It was super stressful. We had just a couple of people on at night responding to every airway emergency, every bleed up on labor and delivery, pretty much any emergency that had to come into the operating room in the middle of the night. And it was definitely taking a toll on my body, and I didn't realize why. I felt like I was doing everything right. I was running marathons. I was eating a gluten-free vegan diet. I was practicing and eventually teaching yoga, and I did practice meditation as well. I was feeling horrible, even though I was told by my doctors that all of my labs looked completely normal. I had really intense gastric discomfort, severe abdominal bloating, just intermittent constipation and diarrhea. I just knew nothing was going right inside my body because I could feel that. And that's what clients come to us with a lot of the time. They've been told everything's okay, but they know their bodies and they know it's not. And my doctor told me that I maybe had IBS. And when I asked, what is that? She said, well, we don't really know. It just means that we're not sure what's going on. And would you like an antidepressant? And I was super frustrated with that. So I went to my OB thinking, since I knew her personally from working with her, that maybe she would have a better answer or a way to figure out what was going on. But her answer was that my severe bloating was because I had two kids, and that even if I had a full bladder, it would be normal for me to look bloated. Eventually, I hurt my back. And although at the time I thought, oh my gosh, why is the world against me? I kind of knew in some ways there was going to be a silver lining to this injury. And I went and saw a chiropractor. Her Juliette Tablock is her name. If you need one, she's in Los Gatos and she's fabulous. And she was a functional medicine practitioner, and she opened my eyes to the modality and really helped me set foot on the path to healing. And she also let me know that I had the credentials and the background to become certified in functional medicine myself. So I signed up on that very same day and became certified in functional medicine. And I was doing that on the side for a while I was still giving anesthesia, but it was getting harder and harder to tell people that they needed to manage their stress and sleep because I wasn't doing those things myself while I was working in that anesthesia job. And along came the pandemic. Our bread and butter was intubating people. So we really were terrified, thinking that we were going to be swimming in a sea of people that had an infectious respiratory disease. And by the way, we have no masks for you. They literally handed us one N95 mask each and told us to put that in a paper bag at the end of the day, and that would be likely the only mask that we would see during the pandemic. I eventually actually got braces during the pandemic, and the mask didn't make a good seal for me anymore. So I wound up wearing this gigantic contraption because it was the only thing that made a nice seal on my face. It was extremely heavy and really did hurt my neck. But unfortunately for my colleagues who were in those N95s, because we didn't have masks, they started sending them down to sterile processing and using chemicals to sterilize those masks, and people would get them back and put them on and pass out or start to feel sick. And it became obvious to me that no one in hospital administration was looking out for us, not from a pandemic standpoint. We had lockers full of supplies, masks, N95 masks, gloves, anything you can think of that had been donated by the community. And it was labeled supplies from the community. It's actually making me cry to look back on these days of how hard that was. They locked those cabinets up and they told us that we were not allowed to use anything that wasn't supplied by the hospital. And so we were stuck with those single masks that were definitely not effective towards the end of the pandemic for sure. But really they're good for a couple of hours for the wearer only, and that's it. So there was no way that those masks were going to protect us. And so I made a hard decision at the end of a 25-year long career. I made a huge leap. I was no longer in alignment with my value system working in the hospital. I knew too much about functional medicine and how many other ways there are to help people resolve their health issues, that yes, we can actually figure out what is going on in someone with IBS, with chronic fatigue, with all of these different things. As I started getting more experience doing labs, working with Stephanie, I just decided that I couldn't do it anymore. And right after I quit my job, I did a lab that predicts biological age. Now, this lab used other factors besides telomeres, but telomeres are the caps on our DNA. And if we don't sleep well or we're under severe stress, those caps fray. If you think about like a shoelace that has that little plastic end on it, when that comes off, everything can just kind of be free floating there and it won't go through the hole that you're trying to thread it through anymore. And that's the same for our DNA. So I did a test that measured telomere length and would give you your biological age based on that, not chronological age. We can't change our chronological age, but our biological age or the health of our cells is flexible based on our dietary and lifestyle choices. And when I did that test, my estimated age based on telomere length was almost 103 years old. And then I did a toxins panel. I had really high exposure because of anesthetic gases, but everything in the hospital has toxins in it. Every time I opened an endotracheal tube, every time I opened a syringe, you could smell the gas and the different chemicals coming off of everything that we used. I would spill drugs on my hands and have absorption through my skin. I would frequently be in the operating room where we were doing intra-abdominal chemotherapy for people and be exposed to that. Something as simple as a gallbladder surgery, when they actually take the gallbladder out of the belly, it's in an incision that's like this big. And before they remove it, they char the liver so the liver won't bleed. and there's smoke inside the belly. So when they would pull that gallbladder out, a plume of smoke would come out with it, and it would always float. It was like a joke in the OR. It would always float towards the anesthesia provider, and I could taste that in my mask. And I just, again, knew there's nobody looking out for us to make sure that we're okay, that we're safe with all of these chemicals. And as you can see, my body just became completely overwhelmed with toxic burden. I was no longer able to process almost any toxins. I was on an almost exclusively organic diet, and I had even tons of glyphosate in my system because I just couldn't process anymore. And as far as my IBS, this is my gut microbiome lab test that I did on myself. And obviously, you don't need to know how to read the test to see that I had a lot of bugs growing there that didn't belong. So I was off on a deeper health and wellness journey myself. And a huge part of that has been the detox kit. Detoxification obviously was a tremendous part of my health and wellness journey. And it's why I still use these products today, because all of us are exposed to environmental toxins and chemicals. You don't have to be a healthcare worker or someone that works in construction to have toxic burden. It can happen to anyone, and the signs and symptoms are typically cast aside by the medical community. And just to say in general about supplementation, I love helping people with supplementation because it's the easiest thing that you can do. I think someone made a joke the other day, maybe Sandy was kind of laughing, saying, "Oh, Liz gets off track." And yes, I do. And the easiest way to get back on track, the simplest thing to do is with supplementation. It's so easy, and it can just start to make people feel more alive and on track, even if they've made no other changes in their lives. Unfortunately, the FDA nor any other regulatory body looks to see what is inside the bottles of supplements. So 25% of them don't even contain the active ingredient that's listed. Many of them contain heavy metals. They come from China. If you buy products on Amazon, for example, you're really wasting your money because nobody is looking to see what's inside of those. They put counterfeit product in the bottles, and it's actually can make people sicker than better. And in addition, if you just, lots of our clients are health and wellness oriented. People will show me their gigantic bucket of supplements that they take based on a podcast they heard, a blog post they read. And this can be done so much more easily, and to really help you with your health and wellness goals and be targeted supplementation from a practitioner who's familiar with the products and knows that they're high quality. So I would love to recommend a supplement protocol for you that's personalized if that's what you want. And if you do labs, that becomes a very precise recommendation because we can actually see where you need the help. Stephanie and I, as an example, helped a woman who was 34 years old with a depression and a history of anorexia and depression. I knew her mom, and she approached me because she'd had cyclic vomiting syndrome for 7 years. So this was a syndrome that would make her feel absolutely miserable, horrific headache, nausea, and vomiting. It would come on spontaneously. It prevented her from socializing with friends, going to work. It was absolutely debilitating. And she was young. She had had a complete workup. Otherwise, of course, was given the traditional birth control and antidepressants that most women are given when people can't figure out what's going on in our bodies. And she was absolutely desperate for help. We did labs. She had candida, she had gut permeability. The candida was using her vitamin B for its own replication, which these organisms do, and that can definitely cause anxiety and depression. And her main issue from all of this was histamine intolerance. So from a dietary standpoint, Stephanie did a beautiful job. We really had to work this through carefully because of her history of anorexia. We couldn't put her on a full gut protocol, but the point is, with just some dietary interventions that, again, were so beautifully navigated by Stephanie, and a supplement protocol, particularly the enzyme that breaks down histamine in the body, her symptoms subsided permanently, and she went on to just live a really happy life. She could not believe that we were able to figure out what was going on and help her so substantially. And that is what we absolutely love to do. We love helping people live their best lives, especially women using the advanced labs. I think it's obvious by now how much I love science. And Stephanie does the really beautiful work of helping people adjust their lifestyle, learn how to meal plan, learn how to take care of themselves, help them understand how to get better sleep. And we've got many, many testimonials, much like this one, about how people's lives have improved after working with us. And we really have many ways that we do this. We love our 16-week signature program that is 4 months of transformative work through using the labs and implementing the dietary and lifestyle interventions. For some people who have fewer issues to work on, we've got a 6-week custom program and a few other programs that are 6 weeks long. And honestly, we wanted to make it accessible to absolutely everyone. So our membership program, even when we increase the prices, is really affordable, and you can book really manageable appointments with us that are just 30 minutes long to help you along the way if that's the path that you would like to take. And we would love for you to join our community if you haven't done that. The only difference, as one of my mentors in functional medicine said, the only difference between illness and wellness is a we. So we can do this so much better together because progress is a spiral. It's not linear. All people on a wellness journey do relapse. It's expected. And so community is a way to engage other people when we need help finding our way back versus feeling like we're totally lost and we're never going to get back on track and meet our goals. We can share ideas, we can have fun, and it's really important to celebrate and celebrate together when you do things well, because that's what helps to rewire your brain so that you are more likely to repeat behaviors that are going to help you be in alignment with your value system and your health and wellness goals and where you want to go.